Linda Burney joins me now. Linda, welcome to 7:30 and thank you for coming in on a very special day. I wanted to start by asking you why you've made this decision.
It's something I've been thinking about for probably 4 or 5 months. I'm 68 and I still have a lot to give. My life has been one of service, and part of that was in the New South Wales Parliament and in the Federal Parliament. And Sarah, I really feel that it's time for me to pass on the baton. There's some amazing young Aboriginal leaders that I am so confident with and so in love with, really, that time has come for me.
What was your dominant feeling today? Was it pride in what you've achieved or regret that you couldn't do more for Indigenous Australians?
It was pride. I was emotional, as I am now, but I was very proud of the fact that we've delivered the biggest ever housing package in the Northern Territory. I was proud of the fact that we've started a genuine employment program. I'm proud of the fact of the changes we've made in education. And I'm really proud of the fact that my cabinet colleagues are all coming to understand in a very real way that it's not just my job to do Aboriginal affairs, it's everyone's job.
You wanted the voice to Parliament to be your greatest political achievement. You said today that history will treat it kindly. What did you mean by that?
Well, I also said today, Sarah, that I'm a glass half full person. And when I think about the referendum, it was heartbreaking. But I have not been anywhere in this country since the referendum. The people haven't spoken about it. It has silver linings.
Now, you've also spoken about the terrible moment that it was for you and other Indigenous people. I want to quote social justice leader Pat Anderson, who, in the wake of the Voice referendum, says, "Our people are hurting from the silence." Is it a political reality that after the failure of the Voice referendum, Indigenous policy had to take a step back in the government's priorities?
What we've done is refocused on what we're going to talk about in a moment, closing the gap. And it's not that we've taken a step back, but we've listened to the people and we respect the people that have voted no.
Did you find it hard to keep your heart open to no voters?
To be honest, at times, of course, I did. But I also realised that many of those people that voted no listened to misinformation and disinformation. And when I said today that I think history will treat this kindly, what I meant is that we will look back in this country and realise there was a great opportunity that was missed. But it will come back someday.
Let's talk about closing the gap. As you know, we've been doing a series this week on the 4 areas that are going backwards, and those are child safety, now called out-of-home care, incarceration, suicide and early education. How much responsibility do you take for the fact that those targets are going backwards?
I take responsibility for the implementation of closing the gap. Those 4 targets are going backwards. That is very true, and I am particularly disturbed about the number of children in out-of-home care, but obviously concerned about the others. But, you know, there are 5 targets that are on track, and the one that excites me the most is that babies are being born at a healthy birth weight, and that means so much for that child throughout their life. We've got 5 more targets that aren't on track, but they're improving, including appropriate housing. So that means overcrowding. So it's not all dreadful news, but we cannot pretend that it's all great news either.
I understand that you often you like to include the things that are doing well, that it's a very important thing not to always focus on the negative, but some of the statistics that are still with us in relation to these issues remain truly shocking on a global level, and obviously incarceration is one of those. And in relation to women in particular, 2.5% of the adult female population on any given night, 40% of women behind bars are Indigenous. You know many of those women. Why are we failing to move the dial correctly when it comes to criminal justice and incarcerating Indigenous people?
Well, part of the challenge is, in my view, bail laws and the criminal justice system. And the justice system is the responsibility of states and territories. So it's about working collaboratively and providing leadership, which Mark Dreyfus, the Attorney General, is very much doing with state and territory attorneys general and police ministers. But I'm not saying that to absolve the Commonwealth, because it doesn't absolve the Commonwealth. But one of the initiatives that I'm really pleased about is we're going to have, and I know we were talking about incarceration, but we're going to have an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Children's Commissioner, and obviously the work with state and territories around incarceration is absolutely crucial, so that we can see, as you say, internationally shameful figures, and you look at young people incarcerated as well, and the figures aren't much better. In some states and territories, on any given night, 90% of the people behind bars are Aboriginal people, and it's not acceptable.
So when you come to the end of this part of your political career and you consider that fact, notwithstanding your natural optimism, how do you live with that fact, knowing, as you've just said, that is the reality for many, many Indigenous people in Australia every single night?
Every single night. And I do not take it lightly, I can assure you. I think about it very deeply and very often. And I do what I can, and will always do what I can to change that outcome. And part of that is people understanding the truth of this country, people understanding the effects of intergenerational trauma, which is very real, but people understanding that these are not statistics for us. These are brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles and mothers. These are real people behind these numbers.
Let's go back to there was an agreement signed in 2019 that was supposed to, in a sense, upend the way Indigenous policy is done in Australia. The push was to hand control over to Indigenous organisations. Now, when the Productivity Commission reported earlier this year, they said it is not happening. Why is that?
I wouldn't say that it's not happening.
They were very critical of the lack of progress.
They made 4 recommendations, and one of them is power needs to be shared, and I very much support that.
But given who you are and the position that you've held and the history that you brought to your current position, why is it going so slowly?
Well, it is happening. Perhaps not quick enough.
Piecemeal, I think, is the word that the Productivity Commission used.
I think they did, and we've accepted all the Productivity Commission recommendations. But, you know, you do not set organisations up to fail. And you make sure there's capacity in those organisations. The Indigenous Advancement Strategy funds hundreds of Aboriginal organisations to roll out services, including in Central Australia. So it may be happening slowly, but I can assure you it's happening.
I want to end by coming back to where we began, which is I described your life as an extraordinary one. And there are those tributes to you today. A great deal of them are about you overcoming many adversities in your life. When you were young, you've talked about the fact that you were called hateful names. And when you went back to your town, when you were by then in politics, a man said to you, the day that you were born was the darkest day this town has ever had. How did you not become defined by or overwhelmed by the anger that must produce?
Well, when that happened, I was actually a cabinet minister in New South Wales. And I was just astounded that all these years on, you can still think you can say that to me. And I think that for my young life, Sarah, when I was raised by my great aunt and uncle, they raised me strong. They raised me with values, and they gave me the backbone that I've got.
Congratulations on your career, and thank you for sharing a piece of it with 7:30 this evening. Linda Burney, thank you.
Thank you.